What's up? What's up? What's up? Good evening. Good evening. I'm gonna give it maybe another 60 to 90 seconds. As you guys are coming in, I would love it if you would state your name, either where you're streaming from, and most importantly, one thing that you have learned or retained or applied from the teachings thus far. All right. One thing that you have learned or applied from the lives, from the teaching thus far. Would love to hear some feedback, okay, as we're getting this thing kicked off here. Give it a couple more seconds. Maybe one day I'll figure out some warm up music for y'all or something. Give a little live concert, get us going. Who do we have? Who do we have? In 30 more seconds, we're going to get it going here. Hope everybody has enjoyed the teachings thus far. If you see me looking around, I have three screens operating, so pardon my awkward eye contact, if you will. I've enjoyed myself. This has been a learning experience, a growing experience for me. Um, but I've enjoyed the journey. I really have. I don't do this kind of teaching often. Most of my teaching is, lessons and teaching you how to play and things of that nature. So doing workshop, clinic, ministry style teaching, workshop style teaching is still a little fresh to me, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It's a new muscle. It's a new muscle. So let's go ahead and get into it today. We are talking about music department positions. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Of course, these lives, these teachings are geared towards the music department, and today we're just talking about each position in depth. Why? Let's talk about why. Okay. Number one, we're all leaders out the gate. Let's understand that we're all leaders. Okay. No matter how you serve, you are a leader. What do I mean by that? Somebody is watching you for whatever reason. Somebody's watching you, right? They're learning what leadership looks like. If you are in a leadership position, a leader position like a music director, worship arts pastor, whatever, people are watching you to see what leadership looks like. How do you lead a team? How do you communicate? How do you show up? How do you plan? How do you prepare? Right? Some people may be watching you to learn how you submit. Right? How well do you follow instructions? How well do you carry out directives of the house? How well do you show up on time? How prepared are you? Right? How well do you take correction and criticism? How well do you work with others? How well do you submit to authority? Right? How well do you work on your craft? Right? How well do you collaborate with your team? Right? If you're a team player, are you a team player? What does it look like, both communicatively and musically, to work with those that labor among you? We kind of talked about that last week, right? We have to know those that labor amongst us. So, what does it look like to sing with your co-laborer on stage? To worship with your brother and sister in Christ on stage? What does it look like to worship with your fellow bandmate in the band pit or on the bandstand? What does it look like to engage, right, in what we would call the river, in the worship atmosphere? What does it look like, to do that? And do I want to engage based off what I see, right? Should that be the main focus? No. But does it happen? Let's be honest. Yes. Right. So people are watching you. Number two, in no particular order, why I feel it's important to go through each position. Some people just don't know, right? And that's for anybody. That's for somebody who's interested in the music department. That's for somebody who may be employing in the music department. That may be somebody who's actively in the music department, but maybe doing too little or too much. And I'm not saying that to throw any jabs, but I've just seen it happen, right? I've been hired or offered positions where it's like, yeah, we want a keys player. And I look at the contract and I'm like, this is way more than what a keys player is supposed to do, right? Or I want you to do this, and you're not meeting those expectations, right? You just have the title, but you're not necessarily carrying out what should be carried out in that position. Am I making sense? If I'm not making sense, please comment, or if I'm making sense, give me a heart or a like or a thumbs up or something, okay? So we want to inform tonight, okay? And we want to de-stress. That's part of just making sure that we're doing our jobs, right? And that's not to say that you're not doing enough. Sometimes you're doing too much. And anybody, I think I see a few people who serve, hey Zoe, I see a few people who serve in music ministry. We know how cumbersome it can be, right, to work and serve in music departments. It's not just what you see on stage. It's really not. I don't care if you're a singer, a musician, whatever. It's way more. And even if we make it look easy, that's because years of training, years of practice, years of critiquing and elevating went into us. It's really not even easy. It's efficiency, and there's a difference. That was free, right? It's really efficiency. We've worked out how to combine certain skill sets to make a flow in what we do so that it's easier for us, right? Or more efficient to getting things done, more efficient in setting a worship atmosphere, more efficient in presenting and creating and delivering the sound that's needed in that moment at that time, okay? So, absolutely, okay? So that is our goal tonight. So let's get into it. Let's start off with our worship arts director, our worship pastor, whichever one you want to use, okay? If you have this position, you are supervising the entire worship arts ministry, okay? What does that mean? Choir, praise team, band, sound, drama, media, all of that. You are the overseer over everything that deals with worship arts, okay? So making sure the lyrics are up on the screen, making if there's a commercial that the church is airing, there's an Easter program, the choir singing this Sunday, the choir singing every Sunday, the praise team is doing X amount of songs or whatever. You are overseeing all of that. In some churches, this position holder has to also assemble worship teams every week. So they're planning things weeks in advance. They're using software such as like Band App or Planning Center or something like that, Teams, Slack, whatever, and they're working with volunteers, coordinating schedules, coordinating songs, helping get stems together, things of that nature. They're overseeing all of that goes on. If the dance team is involved this week, guess what? They're coordinating with the dance team, making sure everything is in place. They're getting lyrics out. They're getting all of that stuff together week in and week out, okay? There's a revival coming. There's a guest artist coming. They're coordinating with management and other personnel to make sure everything runs smoothly. They're coordinating with other church officials to make sure that there's a plan. When such and so such and such gets here, this is where they need to go. This is their point person. This is who's looking after them. They're doing these songs. You need to have these words ready. They're using tracks. They're using the band. They're using our praise team. They have a praise team coming. All of these details that make what you experience happen, this is what they're responsible for. Chiefly, right? They're overseeing. Okay. A very important job, one that, in some churches requires office hours. As we talk about, it's much more than what happens on stage. It's much more than what happens on stage. As well as, don't forget the pastor part of this. If you're a worship pastor, these individuals are counseling. These people are looking after their teams. Imagine every team, right? And every individual in that team. Everybody, as we talked about these past couple lives, life happens to everybody. Grief happens, frustration happens, exhaustion happens, apathy happens, right? Anger happens. Life happens, okay? And if we're going to be a servant leader at that and take weight off of the senior leader, right, then that means that pastor, that person has to be equipped in how to counsel, how to pastor, how to walk with you through situations, right? And so there's a spiritual side as well. You need to be well versed in your word. You need to be well versed in how to teach these songs, not just lyrics and parts, but how to teach the message, how to teach the spirit of these songs, right? At least how to oversee to make sure things are running well, which means that you need some leadership experience. You need some leadership skills, right? You got to know how to talk to people. You got to know how to be punctual. You got to know how to plan. You got to know how to delegate, right? So these are skills that are necessary to hold this position, all right? Moving on. Minister of music. Okay, let's talk about this. This is a position that can get conflated with worship arts director, right? And in some churches, that's the highest position that you have, is the minister of music. Now, what also happens with this position is they confuse minister of music and music director, or minister of music and the keyboard player. It's not the same thing. We're going to get into some more stuff tonight, but it's not the same thing, okay? Minister of music generally is like a mini worship arts director, right? This person is usually over the choir, praise team, whichever, the band, and sound. And when it comes to sound, they're either over it or they work real close with the sound man, okay? A little bit smaller responsibility. Minister of music generally doesn't deal in dance, drama, all that kind of stuff. Dealing with the instrumentalist, with the vocalist, and sound, things of that nature. Okay. Still needs leadership skills, right? Most often still needs to be in their word. Everybody should be in their word, but in terms of counseling and walking with people, it happens to a degree, for sure. Sometimes this individual does have to consult with the pastor, often be in meetings. Like I said, especially if you're in a church where this is the highest position in that department, you're definitely in meetings, and part of some strategic planning, some event planning throughout the church, just so you're aware of what goes on and how to prepare your sect of ministry for what's to come, right? If there's a revival, if there's an extra service, if there is, of course, our big events, our Easters, our Mother's Days, Christmas Days, Black History, whatever, making sure that you're picking material conducive for those, things of that nature. Okay? Unilaterally, this person can share leadership levels of authority with that of a dance team director, the sound man, like I said, a media director, things of that nature. They can kind of be on the same level, and then the worship arts director, the worship pastor, supersedes and supervises all of that. Okay, still making sense? Hearts, thumbs up, things of that nature. Just let me know if there's something I need to clarify. I'm more than happy to do so. All right, let's keep it going. The music director. We're working our way through. All right. Music director This is the band leader. Okay, very crucial. This is the band leader. All right. This gets into that conversation of not doing too much, um, not stressing yourself out, also not being conflated with minister of music uh, or worship arts director, right? So this individual is solely responsible for the band. Okay. Now, in some instances, some churches do require this individual to have vocal knowledge, right? Be able to teach parts or pick it out. Sometimes they do require the music director and like the worship arts pastor to collaborate and work out song lists and things of that nature. It does happen, but in its rooted sense, the music director is responsible for the band. Period. Okay. Uh, so let's go through it. Now, I'm spending a lot of time here just because this is mainly who the series is directed towards, and also, if I'm honest, it's what I have most experience doing. So let's dig into it. Okay. As I stated, many different levels of responsibility are given to this position, but it is not, let me say this here, it is not a instrument position. And this happens a lot, right? You'll see the keys player, and it's like, boom, music director, right? And it's common, right? I'm not here to throw shots at anybody. It is very common to see the pianist or the keys player as the music director. This person has harmonic knowledge. This person generally has the most theory knowledge. And generally has a good ear for picking out parts. Like I said, you have experience with that. Keys is like the primary music theory teaching, carrying instrument in a lot of band settings. So it happens a lot. However, it is a leadership position. If you're here, just type that in. Leadership position. It is not an instrument position. Guitar players can be music directors. I've seen saxophone players be music directors. Bassists, drummers. Drummers are actually really good music directors. I've seen it happen. And I've seen so many drummers who are like incredible singers. It's next level. I could list you some, but I'm not going to do that tonight. But it happens. It happens, right? Okay? Leadership position. So, here's some responsibilities for the music director. You got to know the music. Should go without saying, but it happens. Why am I saying that? If you have a worship arts director who can delegate and oversee and has music knowledge, right? But they might not set up their system in a way to where they're learning every single detail every single week, then that's what you have. And that happens, right? I might have put these stems together and drug these files in and made sure, send them out, make sure. But you, the music director, gotta know the music. Gotta know the music. And if you're the music director, you learn all the music, not just the keys part or not just wherever your instrument part is. You learn the bass part, the guitar parts, the aux parts, organ, all that kind of stuff, right? And I don't necessarily mean note for note or whatever, but know what they're doing. Are you slapping here? Or are you just kind of plucking? Are you strumming here? Is it a clean tone? Is it distorted? Is it syncopated? Are you driving? Are drummer? Are you on the snare? Are you cross stick? Are you tom? What are you doing? Are you on the ride? Are you on the hi hat? Auxiliary. What sounds are we using? Are we on pads? Do we need synths? Organ. Are we aggressive? Are we chilling? Do we need full out draw bars? Do we need less? Do we need Leslie on slow? What do we like? Be aware of what's going on so that way you can make sure that the band is tight. Okay. You conduct band rehearsals. All right. If you remember from last week, we talked about having that conversation with the pastor or the worship pastor, whatever. If there's a band rehearsal in place, and if they like one, guess what? Music director. That's your job. You got to make sure that happens. You got to run it and run it well and be efficient, right? Because we don't have time to be here all night waiting you to get it together, trying to get it together. Be able, be able to teach, be able to get the band rallied up, get everybody ready to go. Okay. In band rehearsal, I'll put this caveat in there too. I find that it's important to not only work on your praise and worship and choir material in band rehearsal. If it turns out to where that's all you got time for, I overstand. Trust me. But in band rehearsal, I find that it's time to also work on building the band. Right? What does that mean? Building the skill set and expanding the skill set of the band and working on other areas of service, other times where the musicians play. One thing I used to do as a music director is train my team on, let's work on flowing in this kind of style, right? We'll do like a CCM ballad kind of style. We'll just work on flowing, how we flow, right? Let's work on things where I may be playing the melody. Let's bass player, guitar player. Let's get you used to picking up on melodies quickly, right? Getting your ear together. Let's work on playing at different time signatures. You never know. We might end up in 6/8, right? We might end up in 7. We've played flows and 5s before. It's happened. So if God gives you that kind of sound, you got to have your team ready for it. It's a leadership position. You got to get your team ready. Okay, so carve out some time to work on that. All right. Also, what I find important is to pray with your team in these band rehearsals. Right. Of course, we open with prayer and things like that in praise team rehearsals and choir rehearsals, but do that with your band too. It's very beneficial. Very beneficial. One thing I used to do was a quick, like 5 to 10 minute sermonette, Bible study, whatever you want to have it, in prayer, just to set out some time to impart the word into your team. Life happens to musicians too. It really does. And sometimes musicians are exhausted playing 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 services every Sunday, to the point where like we'll play and then go sit out doing the sermon and come back. And musicians over the years have caught a lot of flack for that. A lot. And while I get it and what it looks like, if this is my fourth service, and I've already sat through 3, or I've sat through 1, or I sat through 2, I may have had I can only internalize so much. I know we love church. I know we love it. But sometimes people are tired. Like, and it happens. And there's room to dialogue about it, but I'm just letting you know the truth. It happens. Okay? But that's what's going on. But if some people aren't used to, or if you have a musician that's unchurched and they don't have the interest, they don't feel like they're, receiving from what goes on for whatever reason, meet them where they are. Hey, where are you at in life? What's happening with you? And let's find something in the Word that correlates to that, and let's walk you through that. Okay. Let's walk you through that. So if you have space to carve out those 2 things in your band rehearsal, I would say do it, because it's very beneficial to building up the person. As I said, I believe in the first night, who you are is more important than what you do. If you serve, keep that with you. Who they are is more important than what they do. I would rather feed your soul and give some attention to that than just treating you as a pawn, or as just a number, and just you're only here to make sure you're playing these chords right, and then whatever happens is your business. No, if I'm here in a leadership position, I'm going to lead you, especially in the body of Christ. I'm going to lead you to Him while we get this music together, while we develop your gift, right? As you talked about on night 1, if that's what the Lord placed you here to do, and I've been graced and positioned to, for lack of a better word, cover you in this area, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to cover your soul, and I'm going to cover your gift. And I'm going to equip you and teach you and train you to be better for Him. That's the gig. Okay? In some instances, moving on, let me know if I'm doing okay, if I'm moving too fast, whatever. Okay. Uh, Looks like some of y'all still hanging with me, so God bless you. All right. Uh, some churches, some positions require the music director to travel with the pastor. Okay. Um, of course, playing all your regular services are a given: Bible study, Sunday morning, revivals, things of that nature. If the church hosts weddings and funerals, you'll probably be asked to cover that as well. Yeah, this is part of the job. Expect that. Expect that. Don't accept a position and don't think you're responsible to be there for services. Just skip it. But sometimes you have an itinerant pastor or itinerant preacher, and you're required to travel with them. Okay. Why is this? It's because you, if you remember from last week, if you don't, go back and watch it. Uh, Especially as the music director, especially if you're the keys player and the music director, you've had this rapport, you've had conversations, you've built this rapport with the pastor to where you know that pastor's sound. You should want to take weight off of their shoulders. Okay. One thing that a pastor or a presenter does not want to do is to try to split attention trying to get the musician to play the right sound, or to get the band to play the right sound, right? I want you to play, I don't want you to play. I want you to play like this, I don't want you to play like that. Now I want you to shift and play like this. If we have to do it, or we, if they have to do it, or if they have to spend significant time there, just tell you not to play. And while you can have a powerful move and a powerful experience without music, once you have the music adds to that. Period. Music adds to that. Now, when you have music and then it goes away, it's a lot of work to get the energy up, and to get the expectation up, to get the attention up to where it used to be. If you're not being an asset to the point where I've had an asset, or was supposed to be an asset and became a distraction to me, now to get rid of it. Oh, we've tanked. Simple as that. Now we can survive, we can suffice, but we've had to put a little bit extra work in, right? If the music director travels with you, you know how to get that sound quickly, and if you have leadership experience, you have MD experience, you know how to get any band together very quickly, to the point where I can handle the band while you speak to the sheep, right? The music director should be able to walk into a situation where their pastor is preaching and say, cool, when we come in, I'll take it first, or whatever your protocol is, however y'all like to flow. He's in this key, I need this kind of sound, this will be, okay? Now, music directors, this is not a chance to be grand. Don't be going off here sending writers and listen to my track, and this is how we like to bump, and don't be extra. Be respectful, be prepared, right? Be nice. You walk into a situation, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Man, I'm Justin. What's your name? Okay, cool, nice to meet you. One thing, especially if the church has a talk back, one thing I do when I travel with pastors is I'll, hey, my man on drums, what's your name? I try to log in names during the sermon, right? So that way I'm building relationship, I'm building that camaraderie already. So that way, any band member, any musician, even any singer, when you're singing, I think Zoe's still on here, when you're singing with your homies, when you're singing with the people that you know, it's a vibe already, right? Like, it hits different, and it hits, dare I say, better than when you are singing or ministering with a stranger, because now we have to figure out, okay, what's this person gonna be like? Is their energy gonna be weird? Can they sing? Can they do whatever? Like, you have that kind of right? Same thing happens with musicians. If you have a relationship off the bandstand, once you guys play together, like, it takes it up a notch, right? Absolutely. Absolutely, to both of those. Hi, mother-in-law. Um, you know, you can do more. You can it's a certain piece about it, right? So even in new situations, if I can start to build that rapport, if I can start to gel, quickly, that's one thing I do to kind of help the experience go better. Okay, are y'all comfortable with the number system? Are y'all can just get to know them. Efficiency, right? How are you? What's your name? That shows that I see you as more than just a number or just a position. You know what I'm saying? We're here to minister together. What do you know? Let me meet you where you are. Y'all cool with the number system? Y'all got loops? What's your shout speed at this church? That's an important question. Why? You want to be an asset to the house as well, right? Your pastor is there to be an asset to the body. You're with the pastor. You should want to be an asset as well. If y'all are used to bumping at whatever 170, right? Let's say you and the pastor are used to that, but the church is at 160, 165. Where if you come in here out of nowhere, we already don't know you. So if you come out of here nowhere and now you off to the races, well, so that lets me know. Okay, let me meet y'all in the middle. Let's try 162, 165. You know what I'm saying? Do y'all bump? Or if your pastor don't bump, we not even finna do that. Don't even worry about that. We're gonna groove slow. We're gonna do a worship ballad. You know, when altar call comes, just be ready, right? When he starts to hoop, I'll start it off. Then I need bass coming in next. We in this key. I'm gonna call on numbers that be ready to go. Okay. But that's how that works. Okay. So be prepared. To do that. What does that mean? You need to have some stuff prepared. I have. It's not. It's in the other room. I have a bag. People who know me knows about my bag, especially if I'm traveling. Traveling. But if I'm on a gig, traveling, and I do not have that bag, you can kiss the gig goodbye. Cables in that bag. My laptop, a small mixer, quarter-inch adapters, headphones, headphone extensions, MIDI cables, sustain pedal, laptop charger. All of that goes in that bag. Why? Because you never know what kind of situation you're going to run into, and especially if you're traveling with your pastor, you want to make them feel comfortable. They're used to a sound. They're used to a sound. And sometimes you walk into situations where you just got to do what you can do. That's just it. I got to use what I got. I'm sorry, right? But they're used to a sound. So if you got sounds on your laptop, or you know what kind of gear they have there before you get there, cool. If you need to use the main stage patches or Logic patches or whatever, get it up, get it ready to go. Make sure you got your gear input. You have some kind of MIDI controller or whatever, so you can be ready to go. Do you have your 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch cable, so you can be ready to plug into a system? If they don't have one, can you hook yours up real quick? Be ready. I mean, quick, right? A lot of traveling pastors, they will exhort first before they actually get into teaching. So it's not let's sit down and kick it real quick and survey the land. No, I need to be ready to go in about 30 to 45 seconds. Period. So when I sit down, depending on if I need to switch a bunch of patches or whatever, we're figuring that stuff out quickly. If I need to hook some stuff up, when I walk into the service, I'm scoping it out. Okay, this is the band setup. I can already answer a lot of questions before I ask them, but yep, okay, that's what their sound is. They like it loud, they like it quiet. Okay, this is what kind of gear they have. So I know they have this sound, this sound, this sound. What sounds are they using right now, and do I need to go up there prepared to change sounds or no? Do they have a bass player? Do they not? Are they guitar heavy or are they not? Are they CCM or are they not? Are they churchy? This is what's going on in my head as soon as I step foot in there. Right? We got to be ready. Okay. Next. Sorry, I spend a lot of time on that. Hiring and firing musicians. Now, this one is tough. This one is tough, and it's not always included in responsibilities. I advocate for it. I advocate for it, and here's why. As if you're a music director, all things pertaining to a band should be in your area of expertise at some level, right? You should know people in the community. You should have a certain level of knowledge in the craft to know what kind of musicians you're looking for in terms of skill level. Of course, you want the professional ones who are reliable and nice and punctual and things of that nature. But there are those that exist who have those qualities and don't necessarily have the skill set that's conducive to your house. They exist. That's just the truth. Okay. So you can't just pick out anybody just because you have a need. Can't do it. Can't do it. Right. And so, sometimes I've seen it happen. A pastor or worship arts director or whatever will have a need, and you hear somebody playing somewhere, and it's like, oh, this person said they're available, let's book them. Well, hold on, right? You may know something that may be pertinent that will say, maybe that's not a good fit. Or here's a better fit. Like, no slight to Buddy, but I've known so and so for X amount of years. I play with him. I would hire them myself. This person is reliable. You're not going to have a problem. La di da di da. And we can expedite this rather than taking a chance. No slight, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. Okay? Firing, if you're the music director, you have more face time with that band than anybody else, right? Everybody above you is doing other things. All right, have to split their attention in a few different ways, right? So you are the one that has more face time with that person. If you see character traits, they're not getting along in any kind of way, professionally, relationally with the other bandmates. They're not prepared. They're not timely. You see them, not acting in correct conduct or whatever. You see too much of this kind of behavior, and it's just time to go. Let's not even have a whole lot of conversation and let me run it through this XYZ whatever, and have to wait 6 weeks in order to make a decision, and we got to have a meeting. And if I have the ability to hire and fire, and I see too much of this, and I know it's a hindrance to this ministry, let's go and we'll get somebody in. Now, of course, let's do some things proper. Hey, if there's a treasury department or whatever, or let somebody know, hey, I had to get rid of so and so such and such for this reason. So and so such and such will be stepping in. We'll need to pay whoever anymore, whatever. Let's just expedite this process, and we can be done. Okay. Now, do so in a way that's honorable, right, to the house, that respects the systems that the church has in place. But I just feel, this is me, that a music director who has the ability to hire and fire or even sit down people, right? You have volunteers or certain servants that just, you need a second to work out whatever you got going on, and we don't have to have a whole bunch of meetings and stuff about it. We can just go and sit you down for a season, for a couple of weeks, a month, whatever, let you figure it out. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk about some action steps going forward. That would just kind of smooth things over and help things run a little smoother. Just my opinion. Okay. Cool. So when you're looking for a music director, right, in the church, knowledge and skill set is super important, right? And again, it's a leadership position. It's not an instrument position, okay? As somebody who is prayed up, you need somebody who can pick up your spirit and be sensitive to the spirit that's in the house to know what to play, right? Somebody who can be reliable and show up on time, who can be a leader, okay? Who can be an asset to your ministry, all right? Let's keep it going. We still doing all right? I think so. Haven't had a question yet. Nobody's brain has exploded. Haven't gotten cussed at. Doing all right. Okay. The sound man. Let's talk about it. Okay. This position is super important. We always say it, especially in the gigging world, that the sound man can make or break you. This is absolutely true. The caveat to that is intentionally or unintentionally, right? A sound man can make or break you. You can have the baddest band, you can have the dopest singers in the world. If your sound man is not it, or woman, is not it. Can't work a mixing board, can't troubleshoot, can't do any of that. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Um, Very important. So what this individual does, um, they need to actually do sound setup, right? This can mean things from installation to making sure mics are ready to go for service, testing all of the audio equipment, making sure monitors are right, making sure inner ears are cool, making sure the house sound is okay, any EQ issues that need to be worked out, live stream issues that need to be worked out, getting all that kind of stuff set up and ready to go. Okay, make sure the mixer's ready to go, all of that. Speaker positioning, all of that stuff is ready to go. Okay. This also includes maintenance. Okay, if you're the sound man, you should be looking over the equipment to see the condition of things: power cables, instrument cables, microphones, batteries. If you got a fader going out on a mixer, if you have a channel going out on a mixer, if you have an output or an input going out on a mixing board, if a tweeter is blown, if a horn is blown, if a speaker is blown, if an amp is fried or starts to run hot consistently or whatever, right? You need to be aware of these things. You need to be aware of how long the stuff will last. Of course, we can maybe make things last forever. But hey, if you know that, look, this will hold us, but every whatever 5 years, we might need to look at a new mixing board, or we might need to look at new monitors. Every 6 months, or every year, we might need to just go through and take a look at audio cables. We might need to just get some more instrument cables, some more speaker cable, whatever, right? Maintaining the equipment so things can run smoothly. Okay. You need an attentive sound person. I'll say it again. You need an attentive sound person. Okay. Sound men, sound women, they like to set it and forget it, especially in churches, right? This is a consistent place. Know the board, I know the layout. I just, load it up, push my button, and ready to go. And in the perfect world, that's how we would like to have it. No shade, no tea, no slight, right? We would like to set it and forget it. Be consistent. I set it up once, we're done. It's just not, it's just not realistic. You need somebody who is at least attentive enough to where if something's wrong, we're fixing it quickly. We're attentive to know that that's starting to feedback. Let's make an EQ adjustment. Let's make a gain adjustment. Let's do it subtly so that it's hardly noticeable, right? If something starts to pop, let's find the signal. Let's fix it. If we need more of something, if this person tends to talk quieter and this person is a little bit louder, let's be ready to make that level adjustment. The speaker is coming down, the speaker is coming up, let's make sure the mic is on, let's make sure it's unmuted, let's get ready to go, right? So that things can be seamless. This is particularly important as it pertains to live streams, okay? In some churches, the live stream engineer is a completely different person in a completely different area of the church. All right, they might be off in a room, or in bigger churches, the one that comes to mind is Lakewood. Like, they're on a completely different floor with their own mixer, their own computer screen, their own monitors, and they're mixing the live stream. It's a different beast. It's a different beast. Similar, but it's a different beast. Okay, so you need a sound man that is knowledgeable, right? Knowledgeable on types of mics. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. While things can work, just because it is a microphone does not mean it works for every situation. I'll say it again. Just because it's a microphone does not mean that it works for every situation. Let's not mic up overheads with dynamic microphones. Let's just not do it. Okay. Let's just not do it. It happens. Okay. We don't need to put condenser mics on toms. Can it work? Is there a way to do it? Absolutely. Is that how we need to do it? Absolutely not. Let's not put a condenser mic on the kick drum. Let's not do it. Let's not mic your choir with dynamic microphones. It's not how we do that. I haven't seen this one. I hope I don't. But let's not put a drum mic, on the podium or on the talkback. We just don't do that. Let's get the proper cables for things. It's a pet peeve of mine, but like it's so simple not to do. Let's not hold our phone up to the microphone anymore. Let's just not do one cable. I know we have to use dongles and things now. Just move mine around. I don't know where it is now, but just one cable. That's all we need. God be praised. Okay, clean audio in this day and age. A lot of speakers and a lot of soundboards have some way, depending on the soundboard, smaller soundboards do, sound mixers, you can connect to them via Bluetooth. You really can. So let's not do the, phone up to the microphone thing anymore, right? Get the right mics for the right situations. Let's get the right cables, the right length of cable, right? And let's make sure we run it in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. Don't have cables and wires everywhere, okay? And somebody that's attentive, okay? Attentive to the in-house sound. It's not too bright, it's not too dark, it's not too muddy, it's not too loud, it's not too quiet. You have the right number of speakers, you have the right amount of power going to them, right? Everything is clean, nothing's distorted. The monitors and the inner ears from musicians are fine. The live stream runs seamlessly because you have attentive personnel to be able to handle what you're doing, okay? Let's get to the actual band members. Okay, if you are in the band, but you're not the ND, you are still very vital. Okay, you bring a lot. I've seen a lot of musicians downplay what they do, or try to excuse certain behavior because they're not NDing. Right? It's not that kind of. It's not that big a deal if I'm not there. It's not a big deal if I'm late, or it's not a big deal if I'm not as prepared because I got the ND to kind of walk me through it. Let's do away with that logic. It's not edifying. It's not conducive to a successful ministry. You're not being an asset, right? Because if I have to teach you the music, that means that I'm spending time that we could be spending on higher level things, teaching you things that you should show up to rehearsal with, right? But you still matter. You still matter. Like, we are working together to create a sound. I could spend a whole another 30 minutes there, just on what it's like to collaborate and make a sound. But you are an asset, and I actually have. I'm going to play for you guys a stem today, just to give you a little insight of how these things work together. Okay, this is for individuals who are maybe want to expand a band, build a band, or just curious about what goes into it, what each band member contributes sonically to that sound. I'm going to deal with that. Okay, so let's start off with the drummer. Okay. Why are we starting with drums? It's no particular order, but we're going to deal with drums first just because they are a foundational instrument. Listen, the drummer is the foundation of the band. That's the heartbeat of any band. That is the life of a lot of bands, okay? Is that drummer. If the drummer is not it, your band is gonna have a tough time. And let's be honest, we do a lot of spiritual talk, right? We are in the glory cloud. We are sitting on the lap of Jesus. We are flying with the angels, right? You can have all the spirit in the world, but you need some practical skill. You need some practical, earthly, plain level, just proficiency on your instrument. You can speak in tongues more than you speak in English and edify yourself. May the Lord add a blessing. But if you cannot hold down a good pocket, it's going to be a tough time. Okay? Drummer, we need you to provide solid time and solid feel at a baseline level. Okay? Now, with that, I want to acknowledge that it is everybody's job to keep time, singers included. Okay? Here's what happens. Things go haywire with the time and we blame the drummer. Not always the drummer's fault. Okay? I did it recently. Like, I felt some things get off and I asked the drummer, I said, hey, am I rushing? Right? I wasn't. Right? But anyway. Just to check, because it may not be me. Now, if I'm in an MD position and I notice that it is me or it's not me, I got to get on whoever that is. Because if it's not in time, it does not feel good. I'll say it again. You can type in the comments if you want to. If it's not in time, it doesn't feel good. Period. Okay? Simple as that. So at the baseline level, we need you to play solid time with a good feel. Okay? That's what we're depending on. All right? Now, beyond this, right, we need you for nonverbal cues. I like to call it musical communication. Okay, we are getting close to an hour. Are y'all okay if we go over a little bit? We might go over. If you have to get off, I overstand. Yeah, musical communication. What does that mean? Setups, leading the charge dynamically, right? These are things that help the ND not have to call out every single thing, right? If you listen to music, if you listen to especially gospel music, right? Artists such as J.J. Harrison, John P. Key, James Fortune, Ty Tribbett, things of that nature. You can hear it sometimes in CCM artists such as Planet Shakers and Bethel and Jesus Culture. The drummer will play certain fills that let you know that something's coming, right? They'll do certain build-ups or certain time fills or certain things like that to just let you know, oh, something's coming, either the next part of a song, a certain musical lick, whatever the case may be. It's nonverbal, it's musical communication, right? If we call out verse, there's a fill that leads into that. If we call out chorus, there may be a build that leads into that, right? And you're leading that charge. Although there's an MD in place, you as the drummer are leading that charge and you're communicating to singers, you're communicating to the audience, you're communicating to the entire band that something else is coming. Okay, as we cool down, you might do a cymbal swell or do something that kind of helps like lead that charge we don't have to say anything. Nobody's shouting, hey, cool down. Like nobody's shouting that, right? But you just, lightening up your touch and cooling down just non-verbally communicates a change in dynamics, a change in feel, a change in, emotion. And with that being said, as a music director, if you're a music director, you can communicate, you can say those things, right? Like, oh, let's build, or we're cooling down, and the drummer should know what to do. Right? You have to say, hey, give me a cymbal swell, and then just go from forte to piano. Like, we don't need to spell everything out, right? But a good drummer knows instinctively when to do certain things. Fills are not just ambiguous, right? Just because. No solid drummer, no good drummer does fills just because. everything is intentional. Every single thing is intentional. Even the ghost notes and the little tom hits on the eight and splash hits and stuff like that, everything is intentional. Every single thing. Okay? But that's your job as a drummer. Let's move on. Bassist. Check this out. Your bass player is the most powerful instrument in the band. What? Yep, it's the bassist. Right? Even if you don't have one. I've been in many situations where the church didn't have a bass player. It was just, keys and organ, or keys and drums, I'm sorry. And I tell them, okay, let's try to get a second keyboard player, a second keyboard in here at least, so that I can run key bass. You need a bass in here somewhere to fill out the sound, okay? The bass is the most powerful instrument in the band because it's providing both harmonic and rhythmic information, and it's the foundation of that harmony. It's the foundation. Who in here is familiar with the number system? If you are, raise your hand in the comments or say me or whatever, right? Here's the deal with the number system, okay? You see musicians hold up all these numbers and do all this kind of stuff, and we shout all these numbers, and Christian Brown's going crazy right now with, 116655543. Okay, right? It's not Morse code or telephone numbers or area codes, right? Of course, they're chords, but what we're doing, what those actually correspond to, are the root notes. Who plays the root notes? The bass player. We as harmonic instrument, keys players, guitar players, organists have to know what chords and what voicings to put over top of that, but those numbers are primarily for the bassist. A bass player and a drummer can play together and you not miss a thing. You'll be just fine. You want me to prove it? Go listen to Billie Jean. Amen. The Lord is kind. With that being said, the wrong bass note can throw off the sound of the chord. The wrong chord over the right bass note can also throw off the sound, right? When they're playing the right bass notes in a certain rhythm, it definitely adds an element to that feel, to the groove that's going on, okay? We need you to be solid bass player. What does that mean? Not being busy, not being all over the place, not being unsure about what to do when. Having a clue, right? If you're driving, or if you're doing something a little more syncopated, or if your notes are supposed to be legato or staccato, right? Smooth or short and stabby, right? We need to know the difference instinctively, right? Should I be slapping here or should I be plucking here? Major differences in tone, major differences in musicality, major differences in feel, right? We need you to be solid, playing the right root notes, okay? Yes, we can still do substitutions and tritone subs and things of that nature. They exist, they're important. It's explorative, right? It provides ear candy. We even like for you to do licks. We do. Whether that's unison licks with the band or whether that is, your own little fills that kind of lead into a section. We love it, right? But placement is key, right? If your placement is off, guess what? You're not solid. That's just the truth, okay? And so we need that from you. Let's move on. Pianist, okay? Your piano player, your keyboard player. All right. Now this role can vary depending on the size of your band. It's most common for churches to have 3 or 4 piece band: keys, drums, bass, and guitar, or keys 2, bass and drums, keys, organ, bass, drums, something like that, right? Keyboard players, fullness. Fullness is next to holiness in playing, but we need you to be full. Okay, you got the drummer that's providing the foundation. They got their groove going. They got the beat. They're laying down the pocket. You got the bass player that is giving you a solid root notes. They're reinforcing that groove. They're kind of giving you the harmonic layout, if you will, right? You add the full chords on top of that. Okay, uh, playing the right voicings, um, the right sound, the right piano sound. If you're playing pure piano, that's a given. But if you're doing more keyboard stuff, playing the right, if it's a synth, if it's a Rhodes or whatever, right? Um, you're that adds to the fullness that completes the triangle there. Okay, the little groove triangle. Okay, um, in order to do this, you got to have a good chord vocabulary. One thing that I honestly didn't get until college. For those of you who don't know, I have a jazz background, and I knew some things before college. I knew, what tritones were, and I knew what dominant chords were, and of course, I knew what triads, major, minor, and all that kind of stuff was. But when you get into chord extensions and nines and 13s and flat and sharp this and all that kind of stuff, sus that and all of that, that really just like expanded my ear, expanded my knowledge, and increased my core vocabulary to where I could pick out the right sound by ear, but also play the right sound at the right time. Okay, um, if you go to a church that is very, um, I'll say eclectic, or they kind of like have a melting pot of a experience, right? Where you can have CC in one setting and church in another one, and then we're like traditional at this time, and then anything, kind of anything can happen. You got to be able to pull out the right sound at the right time. If you have churches that kind of play or sing all kinds of songs, you got to have a good chord vocabulary. You could be playing a song where they use all triads the whole song, and then you guys have a choir that's singing. Well, if you playing something Ricky Dillard or Mississippi Mass or whatever, Vincent Bohannon, whatever, it's more than triads going on. You got to know what to play, and you got to play that in a way that's not interfering with the bass player. Okay, it's a whole separate live on that, right? Again, playing the right sound at the right time, especially if you're the only keyboard player, when to have synths, when to not, when to have pads, bells, all that kind of stuff, right? And how to make it fit the sound, how to make it either mimic or fit the sound. Okay, I've been in plenty of situations where I'm playing sounds that run on the record, but they fit. That's because I have um, the musicality knowledge of knowing what works, right? Strings will work here, pad will work here, guitar will work here, right? Playing in a certain way. Chris, what's up, my dude? Absolutely, right? Um, you know, you gotta pick the right sounds for the right moment. What type of piano, right? Do I want a brighter piano? Do I want a darker piano? Do I want a piano without a reverb in it, or do I want something that's a little drier, right? Um, does a Rose work here? Does an MKS 20 sound work here? It doesn't always work for everything, right? What I suggest is to have a baseline palette to work from. This piano sound will always work. I'll have this backup sound and this backup sound and that backup sound because this palette will work in any situation. I'm not switching patches every song, right? This select, I know our popular boards now, our motifs, our montages, our chronuses, our Nords, right? If you get your select 3 or 4 patches that says no matter what comes across, this planar center, this band app, this messenger, this text message, whatever, these sounds work every single time without fail. I can pull them in and bring them out at will. You'll be all right. Okay. If you do not know how to do that, YouTube. It's somebody with some board that can show you how to do it, and just show up to band rehearsal a little bit early, or come early to service, or stay late, and just spend some time knowing the instrument, knowing the board. Okay, be ready to maneuver and find the palette that works. If you're the music director, definitely do it. If you're not, maybe ask your music director, and they might be able to help you or point you in the right direction. Okay, organist, moving right on along. So again, this depends on the type of church you play for, because some churches are organ heavy, right? A lot of churches nowadays are piano heavy, maybe guitar heavy, but some churches are still organ heavy, okay? So if you are the primary harmonic instrument, then you're still responsible for fullness and stability, right? Um, you are a lot more active than if you're like a secondary or like the other keyboard instrument. Not that you're less than, because the organ, here's the thing, the organ is its own beast, right? In a situation where um, you have like a keys and an organ player, it's a mistake to treat the organist as an auxiliary instrument. Organ and aux are two different positions, right? The organ is its own is its own beast. Okay, it has its own timbre, its own sound, its own approach, right? Um, but if you're the primary instrument, let's say it's just organ and drums or organ, bass, and drums, right? You are going to, in most cases, be a lot more active in that role. You're kind of like the main keys role on organ, okay? Um, and so you've got to combine and this is my best way of explaining it, but you've got to combine the organ approach and the keys approach to organ at the same time. So you might be, hanging on to a note and kind of holding a note as you would like doing shouting music or backing up a preach, that kind of thing, doing a groove, um, or you might have to be a little more choppy in certain areas than you would. Dynamic builds and things using that volume pedal a little bit more and be a little bit more responsive in how you use the jaw bars, right? Doing a lot more registration settings. If it's just bass and drums, then either you're walking the bass line with your foot or using that other manual to walk bass lines, so, and you still gotta keep everything going. So you're in an active role. But if you are the secondary harmonic instrument, um, and you are kind of like padding in a way to where like you are primarily padding underneath the keys player, then you are glue. That's your job, right? You get to being too busy, and you're gonna clash at some point with the bassist, with the keys player. And that doesn't mean that you don't have any time to kind of throw your piece in there. You do. You got to listen. Everybody needs to be listening, but you gotta listen. And remember that your primary job is to be the glue. You gotta hold everything together, right? The pianist is being full. They're they might be doing embellishments, right? Playing certain scales and certain, sprinkles and certain melodic lines and things like that to embellish what's going on. While that's happening, you gotta hold it together. Patting those chords nice and smooth, keeping those hands together, good organ registrations that aren't too muddy, that aren't too bright when they don't need to be, things like that. Making sure you're playing in the right register on the organ, making sure you're in the right volume to where you're not overshadowing, but you're not hidden in the mix and things like that. And that's where your sound man can kind of help. But you got to be listening to know where you fit in and keep that glue together. That is your job. Leslie settings, gotta know them. Gotta know them. Drawbar settings, gotta know them. Gotta know how each and every one of those drawbars work and how they work together, right, to make a certain sound. Um, we don't need the Leslie on fast all service. We really don't. We really don't. Let me tell you something. That Leslie slow rotation works wonders. There's glory in that. Let me just be real honest with you. And knowing how to corral that thing at the right time, true masters. True masters know how to do it right. Knowing melodies on the organ, especially if you're doing choir music, playing those intros, during communion time, um, but even doing worship moments. Sometimes, man, like I said, the organ has its own timbre. So sometimes that timbre is needed, that texture that the organ brings. You can't really do you can't really do it. It's no real substitute. No keyboard sample is gonna do what a real organ, what a real Hammond organ can do. We have some great stuff now. We got the Nords, we got Viscounts and things of that nature. Organ modules, that's cool. I'm talking about like trying to pull up an organ patch in a motif or a chord or something. They've come a long way, but sometimes you need that organ timbre to do what it does, right? You got to be ready for that. So being proficient and skilled in your craft. We're doing okay. I know we're 10 minutes over, but we're still doing all right. If we're doing all right, give me some hearts and thumbs up. We got one, two, three more instruments to go through. I'm gonna give you guys some examples and send y'all on y'all way. I appreciate y'all hanging in there with me. Cool. Now let's make our way over to aux. Okay. If you are the auxiliary keyboard player, let me tell you this: you are not less than. Okay. I've seen so many times where somebody's playing aux keys and the sound man turns them down in the mix because they're not main keys, or they give them something slight to do because they're not main keys. The main keys is playing all these layers and stuff like that, and the aux keys is just doing pads or whatever. It's a dichotomy there. It's a dichotomy there, and let's talk about it. I'm an advocate for getting the next generation involved. I really am. I'm also an advocate for training, right, and equipping and upbringing. So if you have somebody that's interested in joining the band or interested in playing, and their instrument is keys, and they need experience, aux keys is a good place to start. It really is. And if that's how you got to treat that role for now, I get it. I overstand. I was there. I was there for a year-ish, right? I was playing aux keys in the main sanctuary, and I was playing main keys in the youth sanctuary, in the youth services and stuff like that. I get it. I get it. I get it. You gotta start somewhere. So in that case, let them play pads, or let them play strings, or give them, like, if they're working on scales, just let them play bells and do little accents and stuff like that, to just let them get experience. That's cool. But if you have a seasoned or proficient musician playing aux, first of all, you're lucky. But this is not auxiliary as in less than, you're not as important, whatever, right? Can the service survive without it? Yes. But when they're there, this is where a lot of your, for lack of a, not trying to be punny, but this is where your bells and whistles come from. Okay? When you have a true aux player playing in their role, the main keys person is just playing piano. Maybe a hint of pad underneath there in case they have to do talk music or intro or something like that, but they're just playing piano. And the aux player is what's doing all the stuff. They're playing pads, they're playing synths, they're playing lead lines, they're playing bells, they're doing all of that. Okay, I've done concerts and been in services where I'm on aux. It's not for the faint of heart. Let me tell you, like, a real aux player is working. Okay, I was just touring actually, and I was keys too. I was the aux player. Okay, this many keyboards. I probably could have done it with 3, maybe, but the layout of everything, it was more efficient to use 4. I was playing organ. Let me see how many sounds I used. Let me see. Play organ, orchestra hits, 2 different synths, strings, pad, bells. How many different leads? 1, 2, 3 lead synths. Oh, another kind of bell. I think that was it. So that's kind of 11 sounds, right? Different sounds for each song, for sure. But that was my palette, right? So that's organ and aux. So if I took away the organ, that's still 10 sounds. Moving. Guess what the piano player played? Piano. It's a real thing. We're going to hear it in a second. Okay? But man, if you are an aux player, I encourage you to have fun. You got to listen. Everybody should be listening. You got to listen to know where to fit in and to make sure you're not going to clash with anybody. And that's also why it's important to have band rehearsal, because one of the things you get to work out in band rehearsal as you build relationships with these people is how they play. That's like a gigging pro tip, if I'm going to keep it a buck with you. And all of you on here can probably vouch. If you're in a gig especially people that you don't know, within the first minute to 2 minutes, you're listening to see how does this person play. Do you rush? Do you drag? Do you really know the music? Do you really know your instrument? Are you busy? Are you, more solid and reserved? Like you're picking out all that kind of stuff. And if you have band rehearsal, as a music director, you can pick all that stuff up and say, okay, these are the adjustments that we need to make so that we can start to sound like we belong, right? Chris, if you still here, you can help me talk a little bit, right? Like when you're tuning drums, right? Yes, they're all drums, but the main goal is to make the kit sound like it goes together. So don't have the eight all the way in the Raptors, and then your 10 is down here, and then your 12 is somewhere in the middle, and your floor tom is just out of what's happening, right? Part of the gig of tuning is making the kit sound like it goes together, right? You got mid-level toms, and then your snare is cranked to high heaven. Like what? You know what I'm saying? Same thing with building a band. You got to make everybody in the band sound like it goes together. What does that mean? If your skill level is up here, but the rest of the band is down here, that doesn't mean play on this level the whole time just because you can. You might have to keep some marbles in the bag to make sure the band sounds together. So when you're dealing with an aux player, when you're dealing with an aux player, like if there's a place where they can come out more and they're not, bring it out. If they're doing too much, tell them to chill out, right? Hey, I don't know if you recognize this, but you're like playing all over the guitar player, or you're clashing with, some of my embellishments. Let's like back off the licks maybe 70%. Let it breathe just a little bit. Or we're clouding up, we're muddy, and we're coming in too early, we're coming in too loud, we're clouding this part of the verse, getting the singer's way, right? Be listening for those things. And as an aux player, be listening for those things. You are still an accompanist. You still be an asset, right? Do I need you to copy the entire verse? No. Why don't you just play at the end of phrases or at the beginning of phrases, right? To just give it a little lift, right? We'll look at some things in just a second. Okay, but that's your aux player. Do not diminish the contribution of an aux player. That's what carries, the extra oomph of the band. Okay, your guitar player. Okay, for me, if you are I'll say a lead guitar player, and I'll say the main guitar player in the instance to where like you're the only guitar player. Okay, if you are I would say the role is very similar to that of the keys player or the organist, right? Like you're definitely providing some fullness, but you have a certain timbre as well, right? And the guitars can get so tricky because you have, so many different guitars and so many different functions. If you're acoustic guitar, if you're lead guitar, if you are rhythm guitar, second rhythm guitar. Some churches have 3 guitar players. And somebody's like the lead guitar rhythm, and somebody's just doing like effects and things like that. Like it happens, right? But you have a certain timbre that just sets you apart, but you are an asset to what's going on. So, for lack of a better phrase, like get in where you fit in. Sometimes you can get right in there, right? Especially if you're the only guitar player, you can get right in there and play chords like you're the organist or the main key player. Just kind of double up, and it adds a certain fullness because you're playing in the same range, but then the texture of that instrument just adds a different element to the sound, right? Sometimes you're playing like a lead line or a counter line to what's going on. Sometimes you're doing like if it's a certain funk groove, you have a certain effect that you use, like a wah pedal or something like that. That just kind of adds a different element to what's going on. So we may be over here, as the foundation and kind of holding the group together, and then you're adding like this. If you think about like a sandwich, like we might have the bread and the meat covered, but you come with sauce and pepper over here, to give it a different flavor, right? To give it a different punch to what's going on. If you throw some overdrive and distortion on for your lead lines, if you can solo during a worship break just to add to what's going on, right? Excellent element. Sometimes what I like to do with really good guitar players is have them play intros and verses by themselves because that timbre just adds a different feel to what's going on. Especially doing like CCM worship songs or even fast songs. Sometimes the texture of that guitar, the percussiveness to it, or if you have like an overdrive, sometimes that like chasing after you or something like that, right? Where you can have the guitar player just rock out doing that verse, and it fits. So oftentimes better than a keyboard player or organist doing it, right? It's just that texture that just fits. So if you have a guitar player, use them, right? And be musically wise. You're not there just to kind of riff and kind of strum your way through stuff. Like you are an asset. It's beneficial to learn chords, to learn effects, to learn text, to learn register. Right? Some things sound better up the neck. Some things don't. Right? Some things sound better in open form versus bar chords. Right? It's just the reality of instrument. So if you know that instrument well, use it wisely. Okay. Last section is the horn section. If you guys have a horn section at your church, count yourself as blessed. Woo! And I'm gonna say this too: a horn section is not just for fast songs. Yeah, a horn section is not just for fast songs. We love it. We love a good popcorn section that's bright and tight and can do these nice percussive lines and all that kind of stuff. And we love the Michael Jacksons and the Stevie Wonder influences and the Tower of Powers and the Al Greens and all of that. But horn sections are not just for fast songs. Okay? You're definitely the ear candy. You are definitely the extra sauce, the extra seasoning in the band. Okay? Big intros, counter lines, even unison lines. If you have a horn section over top of a unison line, it spices that thing right on up. You know, different things during shouting music and different things during worship songs and things that just drive. A horn section adds so much, right? It's important if you're a horn player to learn those textures, right? We expect loud and hard and bright, but learn how to play warm, learn how to play legato, how to play melodies real sweet. Trumpets. You're a brass instrument, but man, a nice warm legato trumpet is beautiful. It's not just saxes that can play that way. Trumpets can do it too. Learn how to play flugel, though, right? If you have a trumpet, learn how to play flugelhorn, maybe baritone, right? And get that texture, get that timbre out, right? And add that when it's necessary. Saxophonists learn how to play flute, right? Same fingering, clarinet, right? Imagine what that does if your church does plays and musicals and things like that for the underscoring and all of that. Like it's a whole different texture, right? Very vital. Very vital. You add a certain element that is like it's almost like I was talking about earlier. If there's music and then we don't, and then we have to be quiet or stop the music because something is wrong. Like if you have these elements and then it just drops out in the middle, it's like something's missing, right? I said it to say like could we survive without it? Absolutely. Life happens. If you get sick or if you're on vacation, like the band's not going to crash and burn. But when you hear, oh, we level up. We level all the way up, and it's a beautiful thing. I had the pleasure of music directing at a church where we had keys, bass, guitar, drums, and a three-piece horn section. It was a lot of work because I had to arrange horns for three horns and three songs every week. But man, and there were some talented players. I will shout them out: Matt Leininger, Anastasia Sapernova, and Anthony Lauer. Love y'all. Like, man, they could just play, and they could read, and they knew numbers. Like I heard you talk about working on other things out in band rehearsal. We worked on things to the point where I would call out, numbers during the worship flow. I throw out numbers, and they knew how to make chords out of them. So if I was playing, we were playing like a 6-5-3-4. they knew, almost like background singers, right? They knew how to find their part and play those chords too. That sound was unmatched. Woo, that sound was unmatched, right? Um, so, if you have horns, use them well, use them wisely, right? They're not less than. Don't just have them sitting there to fend for themselves. Be purposeful and intentional because you guys are working together to create a unified sound. Okay. Um, so let me show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about. Right. I'll just play a little bit of the stem. This is the song "Big," the full gospel version. Okay. Um, and you'll hear a little bit of what I'm talking about. I have the vocals muted. For the sake of time, since we're already over, let's go to this section here. Okay, so do we hear all of that, right? As the band is building, let's listen to what we got going on. Right? That adds a certain element to this build. Okay? Notice that the horns weren't playing chords, they were just mixing in with everybody. They had a certain counter line, right, that made them stand out, but they were still an asset to the overall sound. Let's listen to the drums. What was that? The setup that let you know that something was coming, right? That was a build, right? You instinctively know. You don't have to be a musician or to have the most theoretical knowledge to know that, okay, now I'm expecting something. There goes those horns again, right? Okay, let's do a little bit of that, but without the aux. Okay, so just rhythm section. Now we heard everything that we just heard, right? Here is just, I don't say the rhythm section. Here's piano, organ, bass, and drums. Right? Now, did that sound bad? No, not necessarily. But was it as full as when you had some of these other instruments in there? Not at all, right? Let's go back and let's add just the guitars in, right? Here's rhythm and guitar added. Right? What do we notice about that guitar? It's not super high, it's not piercing, right? It's nice mid-range, another counter line, right? That's not interfering with anything. Okay? What are the other harmonic instruments doing? Being super solid. Here it is, here's rhythm guitar, organ and piano. piano kind of being choppy and groovy while the organ is being nice and solid, right? Give me just a second. Let me beat these drums. Right? While the bass player does what? Right? Not doing anything extra, right? We're not slapping, we're not like licking all over the place. We are being real solid, right? And this helps the entire band come together to create a sound. Right? Now let's listen to what the aux is contributing. They're doing all the synths, all the bells, right? Orchestra hits. A whole different element, right? That is what an asset to what's going on. We heard what happened without the aux, right? It was cool, but not as full, not as exciting at all. And what you hear a lot of main keyboard players do when there's no aux, they're adding those synth layers in to fill it up. Otherwise, we hear what you just heard, right? It's a little dry, it's a little empty. As full as the chords are, the sound, right? Without those layers, is a little empty. Okay. Let's check this out. Right there, a little extravagant in the drums, right? But it's something that lets you know that another section is coming. Something else is coming. Right? A lick to let you know how these different sections come together. It's a taste of how these different sections come together to create a certain sound that is conducive for a worship atmosphere. Right? Every section has a spot, every section has a lane, and so long as everybody's doing their job primarily and listening, they won't get in each other's way, and everything is an asset to each other and to the service in itself. Okay. So these are the positions. Hopefully you learned something tonight, and how they work together. Okay, I spent a lot of time dealing with the band and music direction and things of that nature. But to kind of recap, right? Like every leadership position over that oversees this aspect of it. Here, I even do you one better. We'll do some with the vocals, right? The worship arts director or the Minister of Music sometimes will oversee to make sure you're not yelling. Make sure those parts are right. Make sure the timing is right. Make sure everything is there and that we're working together to create the sound. Okay, so hope you've learned something tonight. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I know we went over tonight. I will not go over next time. It's an hour and a half. Jesus, I'm so sorry. But let me get out of here. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you in a couple weeks.